They told you who you were before you ever had a chance to decide for yourself. They shaped the way you saw the world, whispered limits into your mind, built invisible walls around your potential. And you believed them, not because you were weak, but because you were never told you had a choice. You were a pawn in their game before you even knew the rules. But here's the truth they never wanted you to know. You were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to be controlled, to be used, to be discarded when you no longer served their purpose. They conditioned you to believe that your worth was something to be granted, that your success depended on their permission. They trained you to seek validation like a starving man chasing crumbs, to obey without question, to shrink when you should have been rising. And so you did. You spent years moving through life as if you were bound by chains you couldn't see, doing what was expected, staying in line, playing your role. You accepted less. You settled for what they gave you. You kept your head down, convinced that this was just the way things were. And when you dared to dream, when you felt something deeper inside you screaming for more, they were right there to remind you, know your place, stay in line. This world wasn't built for you to win. And for a long time, you listened. You swallowed your ambition, silenced your hunger. You told yourself it was just the way life worked. The ones at the top stayed at the top, and the ones at the bottom, they learned to be grateful for whatever scraps they were given. You told yourself it was easier this way, safer, because stepping out of place meant risking everything, meant facing the wrath of those who had spent their lives keeping people like you in check. But deep down, you always knew. Somewhere in the depths of your soul, beneath the weight of doubt, fear, and every lie you were ever told, you knew you were meant for more. That quiet voice never left you. It spoke in the dead of night, in moments of stillness, in the spaces between disappointment and rage. This isn't all there is. You are more than this. But the world had a way of making you forget. They kept you distracted, drowning in responsibilities, numbing yourself with routine. They fed you just enough hope to keep you complacent, just enough fear to keep you from rising. Because the moment you truly see through the illusion, the moment you wake up and realize what they've done, you become, and that is what they fear the most. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you understand that the game was rigged from the start, that the walls around you were made of smoke, that the limits you believed in were nothing more than carefully placed lies, you stop being their pawn. And when that happens, everything changes. But here's the thing about waking up. It's not enough to just see the truth. You have to act on it. Because knowing the game is fixed doesn't mean anything if you still refuse to play it on your terms. Knowing you were used, manipulated, and conditioned won't save you if you stay exactly where they placed you. The moment you open your eyes, you have a choice. Stay in the cage or break the system. And make no mistake, they don't want you to choose the second option. Because the second you do, you become a threat. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting to be chosen, acknowledged, or rewarded. You stop giving your power away to people who were never worthy of holding it in the first place. You stop being controlled. And when that happens, they will do everything in their power to drag you back down. They will call you crazy. They will tell you you're being unrealistic, that you're chasing a fantasy. They will remind you of every time you've failed, every moment of weakness, every reason you should stop, not because they care about you, but because the idea of you rising terrifies them. Because the moment you do, they lose their power. But let me ask you something. Haven't you spent enough time being afraid? Haven't you spent enough years waiting for something to change, hoping for an opportunity, begging for someone to see your worth? Haven't you sacrificed enough of yourself, trying to fit into a world that was never meant to see you win? Because if you're still waiting for permission, if you're still hoping that someday someone will give you the green light to take control of your life, then you're still a pawn. And pawns, they don't get to win. But here's the thing they never told you about the game. Pawns can become kings. The moment they stop playing by the rules, the moment they decide they will no longer be moved by someone else's hand, the moment they take control of their own destiny, they stop being pawns altogether. And that moment is now. No more waiting. No more doubting, no more shrinking into the version of yourself they created to keep you small. The game has changed, and this time, you make the rules. You were used, you were played, you were underestimated, overlooked, and discarded. But now, you own the game. They told you it was your fault. Every failure, every missed opportunity, every door that slammed in your face, you weren't good enough. That's what they wanted you to believe. That's what they needed you to believe. Because the moment you realized the truth, that it was never about your worth, but about the systems built to keep you in place, the whole illusion would shatter. You carried the weight of invisible chains for so long you started calling them your own. Self-doubt, fear, guilt, the crushing feeling that no matter how hard you try, you will never be enough. You weren't born with these burdens. They were placed on your shoulders, brick, by voices that didn't belong to you. And when you struggled beneath the weight, when you gasped for air, when you felt yourself sinking deeper into the quicksand of inadequacy, they whispered, "See, this is why you will never rise." You believed them, didn't you? Because they spoke with authority, with confidence, with the conviction of people who had already won, parents who projected their failures onto you, teachers who measured your worth by numbers on a page, friends who laughed when you dreamed too big, employers who squeezed every drop of effort from you and called it not enough. A world that only rewards those who fit into neat little boxes, who obey without question, who don't dare disrupt the status quo. And so, you shrank, you played small. You convinced yourself that maybe, just maybe, if you tried a little harder, if you were a little more agreeable, if you became what they wanted, they would finally see you, finally choose you, finally let you in. But they never did, because this was never about fairness. It was never about merit. It was about control, about making sure that people like you never realized they had power all along, so they fed you a steady diet of lies, that success was reserved for the chosen few, that happiness was a reward for obedience, that power was something you had to be given, and when you failed, when you were overlooked, dismissed, rejected, they told you it was proof that you were never meant for more. But let me tell you something, that was the biggest lie of them all. Because the real game was never about talent or intelligence or worthiness. It was about conditioning, about who could be convinced to accept less, to settle, to stop fighting. And you were played from the start. They taught you to fear your own strength, to doubt your own voice, to second-guess every instinct that told you to rise. They planted those seeds of hesitation so deep that you started watering them yourself. You became your own captor. Every time you thought about taking a risk, you heard their voices. What if you fail? What if you embarrass yourself? What if you're not good enough? Every time you tried to step forward, you felt the weight of their expectations pulling you back. Stay where you belong. Don't make waves. Be grateful for what you have. Every time you saw someone else winning, you convinced yourself they had something you didn't. They're smarter, they're luckier, they're meant for it, and I'm not. Do you see it now? This wasn't just self-doubt. This was programming. This was an engineered belief system designed to keep you in your place, because a person who questions their worth will never demand more. A person who fears failure will never take risks. A person who believes they are powerless will never fight back, and that is exactly what they wanted. But here's what they never counted on: you waking up. Because the moment you recognize the chains, they start to crack. The moment you question the rules, they start to break. And the moment you realize that you were never powerless to begin with, that is the moment you become unstoppable. So tell me, how much longer are you going to let them win? How much longer will you let their voices dictate your choices? How much longer will you accept the version of yourself they created to keep you small? How much longer will you carry chains that were never yours to bear? Because here's the truth, you were never weak. You were never incapable. You were never a pawn. You were made to believe you were. But now you know better. And once you know better, there is no going back. There comes a moment when the weight becomes unbearable, when no matter how hard you fight, how much you push, how desperately you try to claw your way out, nothing changes. You hit a wall, you fall, and this time, you don't know if you have the strength to get back up. This is rock bottom. You've been here before, haven't you? Maybe not in this exact way, but in the crushing silence of a night that refuses to end, in the disappointment that lingers longer than it should, in the exhaustion that seeps into your bones, making even the simplest tasks feel impossible. This isn't just sadness. This isn't just frustration. This is defeat. And the worst part, you start to believe you deserve it. Because the world has a way of grinding people down, doesn't it? It doesn't care about your struggles, your pain, the nights you cried yourself to sleep, the sacrifices you made, the dreams you buried just to survive. The world isn't kind. The world isn't fair. The world does not care if you rise, if you fall, if you disappear entirely. And that realization, it's the coldest kind of truth. Because deep down you always hoped that if you suffered enough, if you worked hard enough, if you proved yourself enough, someone would notice. Someone would step in, extend a hand, say, "I see you. I see how hard you're trying. Let me help you." But no one came, no one is coming. And so you sit in the wreckage of everything you tried to build, staring at the shattered pieces of the person you used to be. And you ask yourself, was it all for nothing? Maybe you've asked this before. Maybe you've stood at the edge of giving up more times than you can count. But this time it feels different. This time, you don't even have the energy to scream. This time, you start to wonder if you should just accept it. Maybe they were right about you. Maybe you were never meant for more. Maybe you were foolish to think you could ever break free, to believe, even for a second, that you could carve a different path. Because everywhere you turn, there's another wall, another closed door, another reminder that no matter how hard you fight, you will always be one step behind. And the voices, they don't stop. You're not enough. You never were. You're wasting your time. Stay in your place. Why even try? It's easier to believe them, isn't it? To sink into the numbness, to let go of the fight, to tell yourself that this is just the way things are. And no amount of effort, no amount of hope will ever change that. Because hope is dangerous. Hope has broken you before. Hope has led you to dead ends, to betrayals, to disappointments so deep it felt like drowning. And the thought of hoping again, of putting yourself through that pain one more time, feels unbearable. So you tell yourself you're done trying, done caring, done believing in a version of yourself that clearly doesn't exist. And for a moment, just a moment, it feels like relief. Like surrendering to the darkness is easier than fighting it. But then, something shifts. Maybe it's quiet at first, a whisper, a memory, a flicker of something deep inside you that refuses to be extinguished. Because for all the times you've been beaten down, you're still here. For all the times you thought you wouldn't make it, for all the nights you swore you'd given up, for all the moments when everything inside you screamed that you were finished, you survived. And that means something. Because if there was truly nothing left, if you were truly broken beyond repair, you wouldn't still be here. But you are. You're still breathing. You're still standing. And that means the story isn't over yet. Not for you, not today. And this time, you won't just survive, you'll rise. Because if life has taught you anything, it's this. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not the sum of your failures, your heartbreaks, your scars. You are something they never expected. You are unbreakable. And now it's time to stop waiting for someone to save you. Because no one is coming. But you are enough. You always were. And the moment you realize that, the moment you claim that power, the moment you decide, once and for all, that you are done being a pawn in someone else's game, everything changes. It starts as a whisper, so quiet you almost miss it. A voice, not from the outside, but from somewhere deep within. A voice that has been drowned out, buried beneath years of conditioning, doubt, and silence. But now, for the first time in a long time, you hear it. And it says, they were wrong about you. At first, you don't believe it. How could you? You've spent too long carrying the weight of their expectations, too long accepting their version of your story. But the thought won't leave. It lingers, gnawing at the edges of your doubt, slipping through the cracks of the lies you've been told. What if you were never weak? What if the struggles, the failures, the moments that nearly broke you, what if they were never proof of your limitations, but evidence of your strength? Because if you were truly powerless, if you were truly broken, you wouldn't still be here. But you are. And that means something. It means every time you were knocked down, you got back up, even when you didn't think you could. It means every time they tried to break you, they failed. It means that the fire inside you, the one they tried so hard to extinguish, is still burning, and maybe, just maybe, it's stronger than ever. Because here's the thing they never told you. Pain doesn't just destroy, it sharpens. Every wound you've suffered, every battle you've fought, every tear you've cried, it didn't weaken you, it hardened you, it shaped you, it made you something they never expected. Resilient, unshakable, untamed. And now, for the first time, you see it. You see that the game was never meant for you to win, that they built it to keep you small, afraid, obedient, that every rule they created was designed to convince you that power belonged to them and them alone. But here's the truth. Rules are made by those who are afraid of what happens when people stop following them. And now, you've stopped believing in their limits, stopped accepting their definitions of success, of strength, of worth, stopped waiting for their permission to take what was always meant to be yours. Because the moment you realize that the game was rigged, the moment you understand that the system was never designed for you to thrive, you gain the one thing they never wanted you to have: choice. The power to step outside of the lines they drew for you. The power to redefine what success looks like on your terms. The power to stop playing by their rules and start writing your own. And that power? It's been inside you all along. Because your pain was never a punishment, it was preparation. Your struggle was never a sign of weakness, it was a sign of transformation. Every obstacle, every hardship, every moment when you thought you couldn't go on was forging you into something unstoppable. And now, it's time to use it. No more waiting, no more apologizing, no more asking for permission to exist on your own terms. You are not just a survivor. You are not just someone who endured. You are someone who rises. And this time, you rise for yourself. Because the pawn they tried to control is gone. And in their place, a force they can no longer contain. You've seen the truth, you've felt the fire rekindle inside you, but now comes the hardest part, the war that isn't fought against them, but against yourself. Because for all the chains they placed on you, for all the lies they fed you, for all the times they tried to keep you small, the real battle has always been inside your own mind. And that's where the enemy still waits. It waits in the hesitation before you take a risk, in the excuses that sound so reasonable, so logical, that you almost believe them. In the moments when fear disguises itself as caution, when self-doubt whispers, maybe I'm not ready yet. You are, you always were, but fear is a clever parasite. It knows exactly how to speak your language, exactly how to twist your memories against you, exactly how to wrap you in the illusion of safety. Because as much as you say you want change, as much as you crave something more, you're still holding on to the comfort of what you know. That's what they don't tell you about transformation. It isn't just about breaking free, it's about walking away from the version of yourself that learned how to survive in a broken system. And that's terrifying. Because suffering is familiar. Struggle is predictable. Pain has been with you for so long it feels like home. And leaving home, even when it's killing you, feels like death. So you hesitate, you second guess, you sabotage your own rise. Because somewhere deep inside, there's a part of you that is still convinced that the pain you know is safer than the unknown power waiting for you. But listen to me, the person you were will never survive the future you are about to build. You cannot bring your self-doubt into the next chapter. You cannot drag your old excuses into a new existence. You cannot hold on to the comfort of familiar suffering and expect to claim a life that was meant for warriors. Because that's what you are now, a warrior. And warriors, they do not negotiate with their fears. They do not wait for permission. They do not ask if they are ready. They do not linger in places that suffocate them just because they are afraid of what's on the other side. They walk forward, and that starts now. It starts by silencing the inner enemy, the voice in your head that still clings to doubt like a lifeline. It starts by reprogramming the mind, by taking every fear, every hesitation, every whispered insecurity and dismantling it piece by piece until there is nothing left but absolute certainty in who you are becoming. It starts by accepting the price of freedom, because make no mistake, freedom has a cost. And that cost is the old you, the one who accepted less, the one who played small, the one who let fear decide how far they could go. That version of you has to die, because this is the first real battle, and you do not win it by waiting. You do not win it by wishing. You do not win it by hoping that someday, somehow, things will magically fall into place. You win it by deciding that today is the last day you will let fear dictate your path, deciding that you are done negotiating with a past that has no power over you, deciding that the pain of staying the same is greater than the fear of the unknown. Because this is your war, and you were born to win it. There have always been those who were meant to lose, those who were born into a system designed to keep them in place, who were handed a script that told them exactly how their story would end. But every now and then, someone shatters that script. Someone flips the board, breaks the rules, and rewrites their own fate. These are the ones who refuse to remain pawns. They were once just like you, trapped, overlooked, underestimated. They were fed the same lies, conditioned to accept their place, trained to believe they were powerless. But at some point, they made a choice to stop following and start leading, to stop playing by the rules of those who never wanted them to win, to take back control, not by asking for permission, but by deciding that no one would dictate their worth again. Because the truth is, power isn't given, it's taken. And if you want it, you have to understand the rules of those who already have it. You have to study the way the powerful move. Watch how they think. Observe the way they operate. Not through force, not through luck, but through calculated intent. Power isn't about being the strongest, the loudest, or the smartest. It's about understanding leverage. It's about knowing how to position yourself so that no one can ever move you without your permission. And that starts with detaching from validation. Because pawns beg to be seen. They wait for approval. They seek permission. But those who hold real power, they do not care if you like them. They do not wait for recognition before they act. They do not measure their worth by the applause of the crowd. They do not bend for approval because they understand the most powerful truth of all. The moment you need someone's validation, you give them control. So stop waiting, stop hesitating, stop living for the approval of people who wouldn't care if you disappeared tomorrow. Your power does not come from them, it comes from you. And that power? It is not in your words, your appearance, your wealth, or your connections. It is in your emotional control. Because the weak react. The weak are predictable. The weak let their emotions dictate their decisions. And that is exactly how they lose. But the powerful? They master their reactions. They do not allow anger to cloud their judgment. They do not let insecurity dictate their choices. They do not let fear push them into decisions that serve someone else's agenda. They do not waste energy on battles that do not serve their strategy. And that is the difference between those who win and those who don't. Winners play the long game. They do not react to every slight. They do not chase every distraction. They do not let temporary emotions cost them permanent power. They use leverage, because power is not just about strength. It's about positioning. It's about knowing when to move, when to wait, and when to strike. It's about making sure that when you act, the game is already rigged in your favor. And you have spent too long being used, too long being a piece on someone else's board, too long playing a game where you didn't even know the rules. But now, you make the rules. Because the mindset of winners is different. They do not see obstacles as walls, they see them as tests. They do not let failures break them, they let them sharpen their strategy. They do not waste time proving themselves, they spend their time building something no one can take away. And that is what you must do now. Stop playing for survival, stop moving like a pawn, stop seeking validation from people who will never hand you the power you crave. Take it, own it, become it, because this is the strategy of winners. And if you follow it, you will never be a pawn again. There comes a moment when there is no more time for hesitation, no more room for doubt. A moment when you realize that every second you waste, every excuse you hold on to, every fear you let dictate your choices is just another chain keeping you from the life that should have been yours all along. This is that moment, the moment you stop talking about change and become it. Because here's the truth, you already know what you need to do. The problem has never been knowledge. The problem has been action. For too long, you've let hesitation keep you stagnant. For too long, you've let comfort keep you small. For too long, you've been waiting for the right time. But the right time does not exist. It never has, it never will. There is only now. And now is the time for action. It's time to walk away from everything that has held you back. The limiting beliefs, the toxic people, the old habits that serve no purpose but to keep you stuck. And make no mistake, this will not be easy. Because breaking free means letting go of the identity you've built around your struggles. It means leaving behind the excuses that once gave you comfort, the people who only loved you when you were weak, the routines that kept you drowning in mediocrity. It means choosing yourself, even when it feels like the hardest thing you've ever done. And the ones who once had control over you, they won't like it. They will try to pull you back, not because they care, but because your growth is a threat. Because your transformation is a reminder that they too have a choice. But they are too afraid to take it. So they will mock you, doubt you, try to convince you that you are making a mistake. Ignore them, because their opinion is irrelevant. Their validation is meaningless. You are stepping into authority now, and that means you no longer ask for permission. You no longer wait for approval. You no longer let fear decide how far you can go. You move with certainty. You speak with conviction. You act with purpose. And to do that, you must master ruthless focus. No more distractions. No more mindless consumption. Endless scrolling, wasting time on things that do not serve your purpose. Every move you make, every thought you entertain, every action you take must align with your vision. Because the only way to dominate the game is to become obsessed with winning it. And the first step, shifting from victim to creator. Because victims react, victims complain, victims blame the system, the world, the circumstances. But creators build. They take what they have, no matter how little, and they turn it into something unstoppable. They don't wait for opportunities, they create them. They don't cry about their disadvantages, they use them as fuel. They don't waste time envying those who have more, they become the kind of person who cannot be denied. And that is who you are now becoming. Someone who does not ask, they take. Someone who does not follow, they lead. Someone who does not dream, they execute. Because the world does not belong to those who wait, it belongs to those who claim it. And now, it belongs to you. There comes a moment when the world feels different. The air is sharper, the weight on your shoulders is lighter, and for the first time, you feel it. The power you were never supposed to recognize. This is the moment of transformation. Because for years, you were led to believe you were just another piece on the board, moving where they placed you, waiting for permission, hoping to be chosen. But now, you see the truth. You were never just a pawn. You were something far more dangerous, a king in the making, and they knew it. That's why they worked so hard to keep you blind. That's why they fed you doubt, filled your head with limits, made sure you never looked too closely at your own strength. Because if you had seen it sooner, if you had realized what was inside you, they never could have controlled you. But now you see everything clearly. Your past, it no longer defines you. Your failures, they were never proof of your limits. They were the fire that forged you. Your scars, they do not make you weak. They make you untouchable. Because you are no longer someone begging for a chance. You are the chance. You are the one they feared, the one they never saw coming. You are the one who rose from the ashes of everything they tried to destroy, the one who refused to be broken. And now, you no longer move like them, think like them, or live like them. You do not shrink yourself for their comfort. You do not apologize for your power. You own it. Because the game they built was never about fairness. It was about control. And for too long, you played along, hoping that one day they would let you win. But now, you don't wait for victories. You take them. You no longer react to life. You command it. You are no longer a prisoner of your circumstances. You dictate them. You do not wait for opportunities. You become the force that creates them. Because the throne, it was always yours. You are never small. You were only made to believe it. But that illusion is dead now, and in its place stands something they never wanted to see. The real you, unapologetic, unstoppable, uncrowned no more. Because now the game does not control you. Now you own the game. You didn't come this far just to exist. You didn't fight your way through the fire just to stand in the ashes. Survival was never the goal. Dominance was. Because this life, this game, this world, it belongs to those who take it. And now that you've risen, now that you've shattered every illusion that kept you caged, there is only one thing left to do. Hold your throne. Because power isn't something you win once. It's something you maintain. And the moment you grow comfortable, the moment you hesitate, the moment you let yourself slip back into old patterns, you lose. So you do what the powerful have always done. You keep your edge sharp. You keep your hunger alive. You keep moving forward because there is no finish line. There is no moment where you have made it. There is only the next level, the next conquest, the next empire to build. And that empire, it will have no limits. Because now, you no longer think small. You no longer set boundaries on what you can achieve. You no longer measure yourself against the standards of those who never dared to rise. You see the world for what it truly is. A playground for those bold enough to claim it. But true power, it's not just about you. Because what separates leaders from kings, what separates winners from legends, what separates those who succeed from those who are remembered, is the ability to lift others up. You didn't rise alone. You may have walked this path by yourself, but the knowledge you carry, the wisdom you've earned, the strength you've built, it was never meant to end with you. Because when you teach others how to rise, when you show them the truth, when you ignite that same fire inside them, you create a legacy. And legacies, they do not die. So this is the final lesson. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were never meant to be one of them. You were never meant to live a life dictated by anyone other than yourself. You were meant to take, to conquer, to build something so powerful, so unshakable, that it echoes beyond your own existence. And now, there is nothing left to hold you back. No more doubts, no more hesitation, no more waiting. You are here, you are in control, and the game is yours.